Mr. Spence, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you. Court, please.
Proceed.
Mr. Bugliosi. My partner, Eddie, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you. I have been doing this a long time, and I have to swear to you something that I think some of you will find hard to believe. And that is that I never start a final argument in a case like this without my belly just going lickety-split. And I wonder if I can do my job right. And as I began to think about what I was going to say to you folks this evening, as a matter of fact, just a few minutes ago, I began to wonder what it would be if Lee were here. What would he say to me? I think I know what Lee would say. I think he would say, "I'm scared, Mr. Spence." I think he'd say, I can't explain a lot of these things. I think he would say, I don't know what to do. And I think he would look to me for some answers and for some reassurance. And maybe I would say to him, Lee, I might say, Lee, you know, when they charge you, that doesn't mean you're guilty in this country. You know, there's got to be 12 good men and true find that you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm going to ask you to do just one thing. Lee, just trust the jury. Now, I want to tell you something else that I might say to Lee under those circumstances. I might say, Lee, you know, in this country we have great rights. This jury, those rights are as important to every member of this jury as they are to you. Because when a member of this jury demands that those rights be given to you, they are protecting those rights for themselves. Indeed, the defendant, that's you, Lee, is presumed by the law to be innocent. He has no burden to prove anything. Did you hear that? He has no burden to prove anything. That means that all of the proof has to come from the government. And they have to prove this case to you beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to prove every element of this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And when there are reasonable doubts that are raised by this evidence, which was my obligation to do, fairly if I could, they must dispel those doubts. Not one of them. Not two of them, not 17 of them, but the raft of doubts that you have heard in this case have to somehow disappear unanimously in the minds of every one of you. And I need to say something to you that's very important to me. Each one of you have the power individually to say no. If one single doubt remains in your mind, you have the right and the responsibility and the duty to have the courage to say no. And I turn to Lee Oswald and I say, Lee Oswald, this jury is composed of people that have the courage to say no. That's what I'd say to Lee Oswald in this case. Well, this is a a case in which we have searched for the truth, I will tell you there is only one truth. There is only one truth in this case, and that is the truth that nobody knows the truth. Nobody understands the truth. There is one truth in this case, and that is the closet involved here is locked, still locked. They won't tell us what's in the closet. This man turns to me and suggests to you that I have some obligation to prove something that is in his locked closet. That's the truth that's ultimately involved in this case. Now, I would like to talk to you about some very interesting coincidences. Is it just a coincidence that Mrs. Payne was the head of the East-West Committee? A committee trying to establish relationships purportedly between people in Russia and people in the United States? Is it just a coincidence that the gun that was found purportedly in her garage is the gun that killed the president? Is it just a coincidence that a letter was left by her typewriter for everybody to see, which said something about a letter addressed to the Russian embassy and supposedly written by my client? Is it just a coincidence that the job, hear it please, is it just a coincidence that the job that put Lee Harvey Oswald in the bookstore was a job that Mrs. Payne got for him? What about it, Lee? I wish you could tell us. I wish you could explain to us whether those are just coincidences. Please, there are some other coincidences that I'd like to talk to you about. I think about Hosty. Is it just a coincidence that after his death, and just a few days after his death, Lee's death, that Mr. Hosty destroys at the direction of the FBI a note that Lee had written to the FBI? What did the note really say? Why was it destroyed? I mean, is that all just a coincidence? What are the mathematical probabilities of all of that just occurring in that fashion? You know, is it just a coincidence that the FBI said to Mr. Hosty to destroy your notes? You know, if I destroyed evidence, this judge found out that I destroyed evidence in this case. If I destroyed one little evidence, you know what would happen to me? I would be in jail. I would be in jail so quick and for so long, and I would never get out of jail. Did it ever strike you funny that there should be a man who comes into this court and says, we ain't got any brain? I mean, this is America. This is the FBI. This is the National Archives. This is the greatest murder trial in the world. I'll tell you this much, if one of us was charged with murder, and the most important piece of evidence in the whole trial was gone, and it was evidence that we needed to prove our innocence. We needed it to prove our innocence, and it was gone. Not one piece, but piece after piece of evidence that was necessary for us to prove our evidence was gone. What would we say? We would say, what has happened to this country, wouldn't we? We would say, what kind of a procedure is this? We would say, what kind of a judicial system is this? We would say, what's going on with the FBI? We would say, what is going on in this case? I can hear Lee Oswald saying, I'm a patsy.